Now put
slides.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have it.
And I would like to introduce our
Please
speaker.
introduce.
Our speaker is Mr. Ian Smith. He's here. He's a blockchain developer and advocate for quantum safety, right? We were talking about that this morning. At Quantum, Ian leads the effort to build a secure environment for web application in the post-quantum world. So a big applause for Ian Smith. And the stage is yours. Thank you, Lucrezia. Thank you, NapulETH.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you. Let's see what this button does. Hey. So I have a QR code for our Telegram group on this slide. At the last slide, there is also the same QR code again, and also my personal Telegram. If you join the Telegram group, you can download this slideshow and see links to all of the other presentations. There is an hour-and-a-half version of this talk that is recorded and going to be posted to YouTube. There's an unedited version of it live right now, but we're going to trim this up. So here's the main 45 companies that have been doing quantum computing for the last few years. There are probably 15 to 20 more that have started in the last 6 to 9 months. The total supply chain, you're looking at basically 1,600 companies. So these little no-name companies nobody's ever heard of get bought out for tens of millions of dollars. They're part of the 1,600. Here are the main, potential buyers. Q-Era on the top left just released the 3,000 qubit system. They put out the papers, I think, 2 weeks ago. And 2 days ago, it just started finally hitting the news. This 3,000 qubit system is fully fault tolerant, but it is not able to do any computation because it's not using the same, like completely capable gates. So, according to McKinsey, they're saying that the quantum risk begins at 2027 for RSA 2048. That would mean that elliptic curves at 256 bits would be vulnerable in 2026, and that aligns with the new algorithms. Every year, the algorithms get better and better. Every year or two, there's a paper that basically cuts the number of qubits by 10 to 100. And this has gone on since 2020. They originally said billions of qubits in the Microsoft Q-sharp qubit estimator. Now it's the lowest number, although the number is a little bit flawed, is 250,000 by Optimistic Shores, followed second place by Regev's, which is considered to be the most efficient. And then third place is Shores' algorithm, clocking in at around 1 million qubits to break ECC 256. Basically, 1 million qubits, they can take the private key from the public key. And in Web3, that means that they can basically become anybody. Now, people say, well, the banks are going to get, hacked too. Well, no, they've been working on this for 5 years. Some of them have only been working on it for 3 years, but they're well into their migration process. And the only things that have public keys that can be attacked are inside their network. So you'd have to break into their network and then get access to one of the public keys and then break in using that public key deeper into the network. This is really hard to read. There are some parts of this distributed system that are going to be hard to replace. The missiles and the jets both need to have post-quantum cryptography in order for the missiles to hit the enemy jets. And that challenge response is what makes them green or red on the radar. The other part of this that's kind of hard to upgrade is cars. because there's lots of cars on the road and they don't have the systems in place yet. Q-Day is typically known as when quantum computers will be able to break cryptography. Specifically, the cryptography that you care about is ECC 256 or 255, depending on if you're using Bitcoin or Lightning. Lightning uses 255 bits. So this allows the quantum attacker to become an imposter for anybody in the entire network. Like, boom, I'm Ethereum Foundation. Hello, I'm a bridge. Basically you can become anybody in the entire network based off of their public key being turned by the quantum attacker into the private key. To migrate this network, there's a lot of cache. This is really hard to see. There's a lot of cache that's sitting inside the network. The big problem here is that if everyone tries to sell, there's just not enough cash. There's basically under 8% of the total value available as some kind of stable coin. So everyone's going to just try to squish into the same stable coins and then withdraw them to their bank, because even Tether will not be immune. Someone can just become Tether's mint or become Tether's contract and suicide the contract. So people are going to sell, liquidate, and exit as quickly as possible. And the problem with that is there's just not enough cash to squish into. So a Web3 migration looks like changing the math involved in 3 separate parts: the consensus model, the wallets, and then the ledger, which is, what I mean is the historical data, the previous transactions and the previous smart contracts. Bitcoin only has to deal with consensus a little bit. It's a separate system. The main thing that Bitcoin cares about is the wallets. But Web3 has a harder challenge. They need to upgrade the consensus mechanism as well as the ledger, especially for proof of stake systems. Now, proof of work is only secure for Bitcoin. Anybody else whose proof of work can just get attacked with a credit card. So consensus is an agreement on reality. The question of what transactions are being processed. I've flagged these with more asterisks based off of how hard it will hit and hurt your ability to perform these operations. So the one that is the worst is going to be the transactions themselves. When you look at modern transaction systems, they are combining signatures into a single aggregate, and they can process one signature that's the same size as all the others, and they know that all 1,000 signatures are all valid. There's no post-quantum replacement for that scales. I think the best is an n log n instead of an O1, if anybody here has background in computer science. Basically, it's going to take a while, and you're going to have megabytes of data. So there's no replacement for that system. There's like no way that something like Lightning could exist. So in terms of wallets, this is a little bit more complicated by recent Ethereum innovations. They've started to remove the public key off of the ledger and started putting it on essentially trusted systems or semi-trusted systems. They've taken a central responsibility and made it a distributed responsibility. So now instead of a central cryptography, they now have edge cryptography. Now your phone may be post-quantum, but your relationship to the validator that's processing your transaction may not be, and it's their systems that determine your cryptography. So you could have a post-quantum phone on a post-quantum network talking to a post-quantum chain, and this validator in the middle is like, oh, you have to use ECC 256. You have to use, like SECP 26K1. And that is a problem because now they can no longer centrally manage it. And they're treating this as quantum safety, but it is not. It is now edge vulnerability. It just pushed the responsibility and the weakness to the edge. So the big issue for the wallets is that it doesn't matter how you store your wallet. It could be buried in your backyard, and it's still vulnerable as long as you've ever done a transaction and exposed that public key. For Bitcoin, this is basically like all of the forks of Bitcoin as well as the main chain. So the recent $8.5 billion that was taken off of Bitcoin via 80,000 Bitcoin, that could have been a public attack or a quantum attack on a public key that was exposed on like Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Diamond or Bitcoin Platinum or Bitcoin Gold. And if they've never done any transactions on those other chains, well then it would just be a random number, and that would be the only possibility. But anything that's exposing your public key anywhere is enough to erode the security to a quantum attacker. This is financial impact, and the main problem here is that the bridges need to upgrade both sides of the bridge. Let's say that you're bridging between Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum, or let's say Polkadot and Binance Smart Chain. Polkadot has a migration plan to make Polkadot quantum safe by 2030 or so, or mostly safe by 2030. The bridge would have to be upgraded both by Binance Smart Chain and by Polkadot for that bridge to actually be safe. Otherwise, it can be attacked on either side using the other side. I can publish fake transactions, I can announce new coins and just publish them through and then claim billions of dollars on the Polkadot network, even if the Polkadot network is post-quantum. Vitalik's plan for quantum safety is to rewind the chain and then destroy all of the private keys for transactions. So you would have to use your seed phrase as your ability to prove that you can do a transaction. So Vitalik's plan would eliminate the weakness, but it also break the chain. It would destroy all of the bridges, all of the dApps, and all of the consensus, essentially. And then anybody who has a custodial wallet, anytime they have any kind of temporary wallet or an exchange-based wallet, those all just get essentially deleted. And so the amount of Ethereum will probably plummet because most of it will be unspendable. Now, when you're looking at the ledger, one of the things that you're worried about is the admin keys of every smart contract in history. And there may be some smart contract that most everybody moves to quantum safety, some of the users don't, but one of those admins did not migrate to their post-quantum wallet on that contract. And so there's a record of their exposed public key and a record of their old, now insecure or soon to be insecure wallet. And so the quantum attacker could replace that admin and then upgrade the smart contract libraries to then have an attack, or basically a rogue library that steals everybody's money, whether you're quantum safe or not. And so anybody who interacts with any smart contracts online, well, you have to be sure that every admin is fully upgraded and fully secure, and hoping that it wasn't the attacker that migrated to quantum safety, because the attacker could easily replace the admin by migrating their wallet if they're, if you're talking about a migration under fire. So there is no secure zero knowledge system. That's true today, and that's going to be more true under a post-quantum world. There was recently some attacks announced against any hash-based system So there's essentially no ZK Starks that are secure, and there are the ZK Snarks are using elliptic curves. There may be a post-quantum ZK that comes out that essentially uses a ring signature or ring learning with errors, something like this, in order to have a circuit that's post-quantum that performs the ZK math. It doesn't exist yet. There's been noise on this area, but no one's come through with a breakthrough yet. Nothing's ready to be tested for 5 years, and there's nothing in testing. So ZK right now is horribly insecure. There's over 6 papers that all detail different attack vectors, and an analysis of the architectures are finding flaw after flaw after flaw. So ZK is broken today and in 2 or 3 years. So migrating the value would be good. It would be great to move everybody's assets from a elliptic curve to post-quantum cryptography, like a lattice. I'm CEO of Quantum EVM, and I'm advocating that everybody move to new cryptography, and we've replaced all of the math in our network. This is something that everybody is going to have to do, and the idea would be to migrate all of the mathematics and then remove the old stuff, to remove the vulnerability. And we're partnering with quantum cloud computing so that you can run basically like AI as a service that you can tokenize. Well, we're going to have the same thing for quantum. And we have to discard all the old cryptography. Here are the quantum resistant networks, and here's that QR code. Questions? Sure.
How do you differentiate quantum AVM from others layers that actually are fighting and trying to be quantum resistant? What is your main peculiarities?
So I have a list of about 60 different networks that claim to be quantum safe. Of those, this is the entire list that is actually quantum safe by reading their source code. So the first one is that we're not lying, unlike Hedera. They're just flat lying. They use SecP26K1, they use AES-128. They claim to use RSA, and they claim to use AES-256. So the second one is that everybody else on that list doesn't actually run any kind of EVM. There's no smart contract language at all.
Questions? Other questions? Okay, wait. Oh, we have one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry? I think the risk begins when I'm speaking about this in public. I say the risk begins when the attacker said that they're going to be ready, which will be 2027. And that's, the algorithms keep going down. If they have another algorithm improvement and any one of 8 companies meets their targets, then it's possible to have 2026. The worst case scenario would be that you could run qubits sufficiently on emulators, and then you would just be able to use 40 terabytes of RAM on a mainframe, which would mean as soon as somebody does that work, right? I usually don't say that in public. But I mean, there's your moderate case, uh-oh, and oh no, we are so doomed. Because you could just rent that time.
Who has, oh, over there.
Is there any concern about like post-quantum primitives themselves being insecure. Something like, say, Falcon's based off of NTRU, which some people are a little skeptical about, or anything like that. Or people have these weird assumptions trying to make snark setup.
It's weird because most of the people who work for NIST used to work for the NSA. And the NSA has this history for the last 4, some say 5, because they were slightly involved with ANSI, of every time they release a public-private key cryptography system, they release it with a backdoor. And they've done that consistently every single time since RSA, essentially. So the problem here is that we don't know if they've come up with an attack. Falcon, I would definitely say don't use. Falcon Plus is a maybe. All of the new ones in the new round, like SQI Sign, we have to wait for the evaluations to occur. Their Falcon was supposed to be announced and launched in 2022. Every year, for the last 3 years, they've said, well, next year, it'll be a standard soon, it'll be a standard soon. So anybody who's using Falcon right now, don't touch, because they're gonna have to remove Falcon and replace it with the actual standard. I like Daniel Bernstein's position where you should not generate errors that allow the other party to see parts of your private key. So I would say that NTRU Prime is more secure than Crystal Stay Lithium, based off of that known vulnerability and known attack. We know how to break lattice cryptography, and we can break it up to 200 bits. The private keys that they're using are like over 1 kilobyte. So yeah, there's weaknesses, but it's good that we know what they are. Did you want more detail? We can probably talk after if you want more detail.
Any other questions? No. Well, a round of applause for Ian Smith, please.
Thank you, Ian. This is for me. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ian.